It's great to have you. Whether you agree with the protesting truckers, whether you align with their cause, one of our questions tonight, will public support last as long as the truckers themselves might be willing to hold out? That is the pulse of America. There are reports that our Department of Homeland Security is warning of a possible disruption at the Super Bowl 3 days from now from a similar protest, although that seems unlikely given the timing and the logistics. There are also warnings of a disruption at the State of the Union in Washington less than 3 weeks from now. For what it's worth, the Midwest Truckers Association says there is no organized effort for truckers to protest in the U.S. that they know of. An important caveat. Now, as we get more reports of what's happening in Canada impacting everyday lives on our side of the border, jobs, the economy, you can expect public support to fade, even though most might agree taking a peaceful stance for freedom is a noble cause. In fact, the city of Windsor, Ontario, connected with Detroit, Michigan by the Ambassador Bridge, just filed an injunction in court to remove the truckers who are blocking the bridge on the Canadian side. They've had enough. A writer who has spoken to 100 of the truckers protesting in Canada says this is about much more than a vaccine mandate. It's about something else, she says, or many things, a sense that things will never go back to normal. The government took liberties with our freedoms during the pandemic, and the concern is we'll never get them back because the precedent is set. Among other things that were said, something a lot of people, in fact, on this side of the border have certainly expressed concerns about. But how long will people on either side tolerate honking horns, humming diesel engines, snarled traffic, lost jobs, and much more? In fact, in Detroit, 3 automakers have already temporarily halted production due to parts shortages. The protest is also disrupting the food supply chain, specifically beef, fruit, and vegetables. After 2 years of COVID, people don't want to see their lives disrupted anymore in any way. Everyone, like the truckers, would like a return to normal, and that's where we begin tonight with NewsNation's Rudabeh Shabazi live for us in Ottawa. And Rudabeh, you have the latest now on the situation and the disruptions that are happening on the U.S. side of the border as a result of all of this.
Yeah, Joe, you mentioned the Ambassador Bridge. That is the main thoroughfare. That is the busiest crossing in North America. They've requested that injunction to remove the demonstrators, but it is having an effect on the economy. You mentioned it. Ford, GM, Chrysler, Toyota, Honda, all having at least temporary disruptions or at times complete shutdowns of plants. And if you talk to some of the demonstrators here in Ottawa, they say that's the goal in some ways. They say, why wasn't the economy taken into consideration for these 2 years during the pandemic, and that this is their way to make a statement. These are the essential workers who are bringing groceries to the shelves, who are providing food, who are providing resources. But then you talk to some of the people who are being affected, who can't get through. These are long delays through the it's at times completely shut down from Windsor to Detroit and vice versa. Long delays diverting into other areas. And of course, this also has inspired, as you mentioned, similar copycat type demonstrations with truckers in the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, and elsewhere.
I'm sure within the bubble of that blockade, the truckers are dug in. Are they hearing the voices of frustration at all? Are they worried about losing support the longer this goes on?
I don't think they're worried about losing support. They are hearing the voices, but that is the point. You know, they say that they're gaining support. They say this is a movement. And of course, this started as a trucker convoy from British Columbia. They then came here to the capital of Ottawa, and by the time they got here, it was much more than just truckers. In fact, other demonstrators outnumbered the truckers. And if you walk down the streets, you see these trucks blocking the entire downtown area. It is gridlock outside the Capitol. And if you put that in perspective, think about if that was outside the Hill, outside the White House, how disruptive that would be and what a statement that would make. But there are also cars lined all along the streets, people living in their cars, people who have come from all over the country to support these truckers.
All right, NewsNation's Rudabeh Shabazi live for us tonight in Ottawa. Rudabeh, thank you very much. Joining me now, a trucker here in the U.S., Brian Ilesley. Brian, it's great to have you. This is primarily a Canadian issue, but as we saw there, it is having an impact in the States. Are U.S. truckers on board with this? Do they support it?
Hey, thank you for having me tonight. It's an honor to be on with you to clarify a lot of this. It's a very popular thing that's growing in the community right now. Guys are all about this. There are a little bit of misinformation going around that this might affect the Super Bowl or the State of the Union. It's not exactly going to line up with the timeline that's currently set. Currently, there isn't really a timeline to follow, but these guys are committed. They have seen that our neighbors to the north really took a giant step forward and have made the elites of Canada hurt with what they're doing. This is working. The only bad tactic is a tactic that doesn't work, and this one works. Shutting down this bridge isn't ideal. It wasn't the initial goal, but it's really drawn more attention to this than they ever thought it possibly could.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about Sarnia and Windsor being two of the largest ports that that you can go in and out of Canada with. If this were to affect Niagara Falls, I mean, that's the other one that's going to feed most of your eastern corridor. This thing could get a whole lot bigger than it already has with the automakers doing what they're doing.
Right. What is the timeline, Brian? You mentioned that. Is there anything, in your opinion, that might be in the works in the U.S. that would look similar to this?
There absolutely is something in the works, and I know that on firsthand knowledge. But we're not really trying to go too public with it. We're trying to keep it in-house as much as we can because we want to make sure that this stays a grassroots movement. The guys that are involved in this are really dedicated, hardworking guys. They just want to put food on their family's table. And a lot of the guys that go across the border are a subset of a subset in the industry. Not many guys already qualified to go in and out of Canada before all of these mandates came into effect, and now it's that much more difficult. My company here, we're a local company, so I physically won't be able to go to the protest where it begins. And what I've seen is we've seen at least a triple or quadruple of the amount of cross-docking that we do because guys that were eligible just 3 weeks ago are no longer eligible. So we have drivers coming in, dropping 4 or 5 pallets here. And then another driver who is Canada eligible has to come down from, say, New Brunswick, grab it and bring it up. It adds 2 or more days and a lot of extra cost to something that's already not cheap to go in and out of Canada.
You'd be willing to shut down borders, Brian, like we're seeing in Windsor? I'm just curious because I think it feels to me like maybe the U.S. truckers have taken the temperature on this and they realize we're all dealing with an awful lot, not to mention inflation, supply chain, COVID, all these other things. The last thing we need right now is another roadblock like this.
People may see this as a harsh measure, but shutting down the border to us, to them really, is no different than having their livelihood shut down. I mean, you can't shut down a global economy at this point. And that's really what the United States and Canada, and we're one giant global economy. And we, at the very beginning, agreed that 15 days to slow the spread turned into 2 years to slow the spread. It has gone on for far too long. And the only reason somebody is taking notice lately, it seems, here in the United States is not because, child suicide is up and it's, a number of percent. There you have the at-home problems, child abuse, spousal abuse, that is all up. Substance abuse is up. It's not these reasons that people are taking down their mandates, the mask mandates or vaccine mandates or anything like that. It's because of some other reason, and I suspect maybe internal.
What would you want? What would you want, Brian? Why would you do this? Why would you blockade? Because truckers here don't need to be vaccinated, which is the issue in Canada.
It's not just the vaccine mandate that's the problem. We're talking about freedom. This is a God-given right. I should be able to make a delivery to a storefront in New York City without having to do something with my body and my medical history that I don't think I should be doing. In order to travel into the United States, these people need to be vaccinated or quarantined for 14 days. There are other options, but it's not a viable option when these guys are trying to make a living.
Right.
14 days between your delivery and your next pickup could mean making your mortgage or not.
All right, Brian Ilesley, we appreciate you being with us tonight. Thank you for your insight, your point of view. Take care.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Joining me now, someone with expertise in conflict resolution, the host of Judge Jerry and former Cincinnati Mayor Jerry Springer. We got a little welcome for you there. Jerry, it's good to see you. I mean, part of this, I think, at this point is the frustration with resolving this, because it's really, to me, and I think a lot of people, unclear what exactly the truckers want. It started as the vaccine mandates, but now it's grown into something that's a little more vague, and I'm not sure still, freedom. How would you resolve this, as you've done this for years on your shows?
Yeah, well, normally you sit down and you ask specifically, what is it that you want? Usually the protests are for two reasons. One, to bring attention to an issue. Well, there is no other issue that people have been talking about more for the last 2.5 years than the pandemic and the shutdowns and everything. So I don't think this adds to people paying attention to the issue. So that part isn't necessary at all.
Right.
The second part is, what specifically do they want? And when they say they want freedom, well, who doesn't want freedom? The issue is never whether or not we should have freedom, for example, in America. The question is, there are always limitations from time to time on freedoms if there is a significant public purpose. So that is why you have government in the first place. When there is a legitimate threat to the public, in this case, it was 500,000 people dying, the pandemic, et cetera. There was a serious threat, and everyone knew someone who was dying or who, was in a terrible shape because of it. And therefore, there have to be some regulations. We can argue how long the mask mandate should be or whatever, but really getting into the argument that Americans no longer have freedom because, in some communities, in some situations, you have to either be vaccinated, assuming that the doctor says your body can take it, or that you have to wear a mask. My God, we have our sons and daughters fighting and dying for this country, and the rest of us are going to complain because we have to put a mask on. Honestly, it's like, come on. Yeah. There are real issues in the world, but wearing a mask from time to time isn't one of them.
All right, one of the issues, Jerry, is crime, and it's become a huge issue. We've seen just two recent examples: a school bus driver in Minneapolis shot in the head. In New York, store owners are basically locking up basic essentials. Al Sharpton is asking the new mayor there to take action. You were the mayor of a big city. What do we need to do to get this under control?
Well, the one thing, I had it a lot easier 40 years ago than mayors have it today, is we didn't then have social media. We didn't then have cable news. And what I mean by that is, anything that happens in any community is now seen by the whole world an hour later. So therefore, suddenly every incident, as serious as that particular incident is, becomes a national issue or an international issue. So I don't know that people are behaving any worse than they were back then. I mean, if you go back 50, 60 years, we had a Holocaust, we had world wars, we had the Depression, we had the McCarthy era, we had the Vietnam protests. I mean, we've always had these difficult times, but now it seems more prevalent because we see it every day, and our kids are talking about it every day on their cell phones.
Do you think Democrats have been hurt by the defund the police slogan, Jerry? And should Democrats get tougher on crime?
I would simply say I don't think that defund the police is a smart thing, but I'm not going around blaming it. It's just like saying the people that said it, some of them happen to be Christian. We're going to blame Christians. There are some politicians that take that position. That is not an official position of the party. I would say, if you're raising the issue of politics, in fairness, the Republican Party used to be the party of law and order.
Right.
That, in the last 5 years, has gone out the window. Including attacks on the Capitol, which now they say, let's not even talk about, that's in the past. If you're going to be serious about law and order, it has to apply to the people in power as well as the people that live around the corner. Everyone has to be involved in the law and order, not just the working people.
Jerry, before we let you go, you used to be the mayor of Cincinnati. What would it mean to that city for the Bengals to win the Super Bowl?
Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. During my years, the 70s and 80s, Cincinnati was basically known for WKRP in Cincinnati,
right?
The Big Red Machine, the Reds in baseball, and the Bengals going to the Super Bowl twice in the 80s. Now, but that was the city's identity because most people don't think about Cincinnati unless you live around there. this has put Cincinnati back on the map. And my guess is most of the country will be rooting for the underdog.
Yeah.
And so Cincinnati people, it's great. We're loving it.
Yeah. Hey, we had Joe Burrow's parents on the other night, Jerry, and they were talking about their love of the local food options, including the Montgomery Inn. Your favorite spot there? What do you think?
Yeah, the Montgomery Inn, they have great ribs, skyline, chili. Are you kidding me? And not to talk about ice cream this time of the year, but Grater's ice cream. I should get something for a commercial for these products.
You absolutely should. And anytime you talk about ice cream, I'm listening and in. Okay. Jerry Springer, host of the
Thanks for having me.
You bet. The host of the show, Judge Jerry, and of course, the Jerry Springer Show. Good to see you, Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you.
A 4-year-old who's already undergone 3 open heart surgeries, how her dad is making her feel not so alone. That's tonight on NewsNation Prime, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Some of the biggest stars in the NFL have won this award, and it has nothing to do with what they did on the field. Yet it's one of the biggest honors a player can receive. Up next, Walter Payton's son, Jarrett, on why the award named after his dad means so much to so many. Tonight, the NFL will hand out some of the game's most prestigious awards during its annual NFL Honors Ceremony. Among them, the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, recognizing an NFL player for his excellence and contributions on and off the field and in his community. The award, established in 1970, was renamed in 1999 after Hall of Fame running back and NFL legend Walter Payton, who died in 1999. Payton won the award in 1977. Payton helped the Chicago Bears win their only Super Bowl. That was during that iconic 1985 season, and is the NFL's second all-time leading rusher. Payton also an example of an athlete who transcends sports, those who made an impact that endures even decades later. And I'm joined now by Walter's son, Jarrett Payton, who will be presenting the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award tonight. And Jarrett, also just on a personal note, one of my favorite colleagues from my WGN days. He is the sunshine in that newsroom, always positive, and it's great to have Jarrett with us here tonight. Jarrett, you announced the winner tonight. What makes this award so unique and so coveted by the players?
Well, Joe, when it comes down to this award, you know, it's named after my father and renamed in 1999, and it's gotten bigger and bigger every single year. And you know, everybody wants to win the MVP award, right? Everybody's trying to wait to see who's going to be, you know, get that honor tonight. But when it comes down to it, a lot of these guys in the NFL, they want this Walter Payton Man of the Year award because it's not only what you do on the field. I mean, that's a criteria of it as well, but it's what you do off the field. And I think that's what makes it special. And to be able to highlight 32 nominees from each team to see what these guys are doing, I think that's what makes it so special. I think we see in the news every single day when guys are, you know, making mistakes and doing things wrong, but we're not that kind of overshadows some of the great things that these guys are doing in the NFL. And I think this award really shines light on what these guys are doing and some of the positive things that they're doing for their communities.
Yeah, you were with some of the winners, I know, previous winners last night, right? What did they say about it?
Yeah. Well, I was with Jerome Bettis last night and also Chris Carter, and both guys they're just leaders of men, and what they do and how they keep, you know, the legacy alive of my father in this award. And Chris Carter said, you know, other than his gold jacket from the Hall of Fame, his Man of the Year trophy sits right next to his gold jacket, and that says something. And when you look at Eli Manning and you look at, you know, guys like Kurt Warner when they're doing live shots from home, that trophy sits right behind them. So it's one of those things that kind of elevates them into another stratosphere when it comes to giving back in service. And, you know, both those guys talked about the importance of the award, but also just kind of elevating the award as well and being able to really shine light on these guys and what they're doing with their foundations in their communities and in their cities.
Jarrett's a great follow on social media, Payton's son, and the son is spelled S-U-N. He's uplifting and motivational. Jarrett, you share a lot of pictures of you with your dad and stories as well. And one thing I always loved about you, Jarrett, was how close he remains to you and what a powerful force he is in your life still to this day, all these years after he died. Tell us how he embodied this award. And on another personal note, I guess what you miss the most about him.
Man, Joe, I just miss his smile. I miss him being around. I got chills when I said that. He was the most amazing football player that I've ever seen. And I've been watching football, since I was little. And there's no one that will ever be like him. And when you really kind of, look at when God said he was going to make a football player, I really believe he chiseled my dad out of stone. And he was the greatest. And what he did off the field, I think, is what his legacy is all about and what people talk to me most about him. So I just miss his presence. And I think now being a father and my sister, being a mother and having grandkids running around, I think we miss him being around, what it would be like to have him with his grandchildren, because that's what his love and his passion was given back to not only people, but also impacting kids. So I just want to see what kind of grandfather he'd be. But when it comes to the award, I think he would truly be honored. I mean, to have his name on that award and what it means in the NFL, for him, I know he's smiling down right now, and I know he's looking forward to, just like we are as a family, to welcome in another member of the Man of the Year family. And tonight is going to be really, really special for all of us.
All right, let's talk a little football while we have you, Jared. Commissioner Goodell addressing the recent lawsuit over the lack of hiring of black coaches. Here's a clip.
Is there another thing that we can do to make sure we're attracting that best talent here and making our league inclusive? If I had the answer right now, I would give it to you. I would have implemented it. I think what we have to do is just continue and find and look and step back and say, we're not doing a good enough job here.
Jared, I'm guessing you agree. I mean, he's paid by the owners, Goodell is. He works for them. But in the end, is this on the owners to do more about it?
Yeah, I think so. I think we need more transparency when it comes to the hiring process a little bit more as well. I mean, we look at a league that is 75% black players on the football field, and also we have black coaches that have played. And when you look at the resumes of some of these guys, I'm not saying that you have to, choose somebody because of the color of their skin, but I just think that when it comes to being a minority in this league, you got to get more of an opportunity to be able to get these head coaches jobs. But Joe, it comes down to it. There's only 32 of them. And as of right now, when we look at it, there's only 2 black coaches. So I just feel like we got to do better as a league. We got to figure out a way to be able to find more diversity when it comes to hiring black coaches and giving them more of an opportunity and, trying to figure out. So yes, I truly agree with Roger Goodell of finding more ways to be able to make this league more inclusive, but also finding more opportunities for black and minority coaches.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the game Sunday. Who you got?
Man, this is a rough one. I mean, everybody's going with the Rams. And, you look at offensively and defensively of how good they are and how Matthew Stafford is playing. I really, really want to go with the Rams. There's something inside of me of picking against the Bengals all season long, saying that they are a team of destiny. Man, I've gone back and forth. I think I'm going to stick with this answer right here. I think the Rams are just too strong. I think defensively they're going to find a way to get after Joe Burrow, and I know he's had an amazing year, but I'm going to have to go with the Rams getting in there in their own stadium and hoisting that Lombardi trophy here at SoFi.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the Bears.
I was going to say the Bears. I know we had that conversation. I was going to say the Bears, but I didn't want people to get mad at me. One day while I'm still in this business, the Bears have to find a way to be able to get to a Super Bowl so I can cover it. Because in 2006, I was just a guy still trying to play in the NFL, in the CFL. Now covering these games, I want to know what that feeling's like to be able to cover the Bears in the Super Bowl.
And I know you're working, JP, so we'll cut you some slack. But it looks like you need to get back in the gym, brother. You're getting skinny. Look at that.
Come on, Joe.
Hey.
Joe, don't make me flex on TV. I'll tell you right now, this sun is really giving me that vitamin D. I'm feeling a lot better with myself. And I know you were giving me compliments earlier. I'll tuck the guns away. Sorry.
Sun's out, guns out. JP, it's always good to see you, my friend. Take care. Enjoy the game Sunday. Tonight, the NFL will hand out some of the game's most prestigious awards. All right, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, Jared Payton. We thank him for his time. A student assembly at a public high school about religion, and it turned into a civics lesson when the students walked out what they were protesting. And we'll ask our principal, is there any scenario where teaching religion in a public school is acceptable? Plus, this single mom of 5 who was arrested for putting her 14-year-old daughter in charge of babysitting her siblings. What this says about the issues facing women in the workforce.
there absolutely is something in the works, and I know that on firsthand knowledge. But we're not really trying to go too public with it. We're trying to keep it in-house as much as we can because we want to make sure that this stays a grassroots movement. The guys that are involved in this are really dedicated, hardworking guys. They just want to put food on their family's table.
That was from the top of the broadcast, American trucker Brian Ilesley telling us there are, in fact, plans for a protest here in the U.S. similar to the one in Canada, although he did tell us it does not include disrupting the Super Bowl or the State of the Union. We shall see. Now this.
A week later, they came back and told me I was going to be arrested. So what went through my mind was just shock.
The decision she made was leave, 14-year-old in charge, my children should be fine, it happens. She did nothing wrong.
So that was Melissa Henderson and her attorney appearing on this broadcast and also Banfield yesterday. Henderson, a single mom of 5, was arrested for leaving her children in the care of her 14-year-old daughter while she went to work. The family's daycare was closed due to COVID. Henderson now facing potential jail time, and all of this highlighting the challenges of working women, among other things. The Labor Department reporting that many more men than women are currently in the workforce, 70% to 58%, in situations like Henderson's, certainly making it no easier for working moms. We're joined now by business reporter and mom of 2, Shivani Joshi. It's good to see you, Shivani. Let's talk about these 2 stories because there's a lot to read into both of them, and we'll get to the business angle in a minute. But what do you make as a mom of what happened to this in this child care case?
Well, I've got 3 kids, Joe, and then the third one would feel left out, so I got to include him in there too.
Okay.
But it breaks my heart. I have been in this position as a mom, needing to run out to the grocery store or what have you. I live in California, where I've had to look into and been very clear on what age is acceptable to allow my oldest to watch my youngest. But it is tragic because what you pointed to is diminishing participation of women in the workforce. We've seen millions of people leave. 1 in 5 women left the workforce last year, and the biggest reason is they had to care for other people,
right,
not just their children, but maybe elderly and members of the family. And then after that, they wanted more work flexibility, which is a very reasonable thing to ask for. And this woman, because of the daycare is being shut down, is getting penalized for doing her duty of going to work. It breaks my heart. And it's something that's so relatable and so many women have had to face in different ways, obviously.
Right. What does this disparity say to you, Shivani, especially about the family dynamic today? I mean, we've all had to adjust to COVID. There are a lot of people, women especially, who are just now reevaluating and saying it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, this is what a lot of families across America are having these difficult conversations about, because the pandemic has just brought to the surface the inequity and the imbalance that's happening in a lot of working household, in American working households. A McKinsey study said women are 3 times as likely to be responsible for household work versus working men. They're 2 times as likely to reduce their working hours because of childcare and household duties. And 3 out of 4 senior managers out there, women managers, have contemplated reducing what they do at work, their hours, or even taking a step back in their career paths. And the fact remains is the bulk of the household burdens, childcare burdens, are still falling and resting on women. And we're going out there and doing work too. And so there are some hard conversations that are having to happen. Of course, government support and different plans also are very important in terms of this. But the conversations between partners and the division of labor clearly needs to be looked at today.
Yeah, well, you tackled a lot there for us, Shivani. We appreciate it both as a business expert and a mom. Thanks for the time. Good to see you as always.
All right, thank you.
Separate the church and state! Separate the church and state! Separate the church and state! Separate the church and state!
A real-life separation of church and state civics lesson playing out at a high school in West Virginia as more than 100 students walk out. The protesting students were outraged after the public school held a Christian revival assembly during school hours. They said they were forced to attend an event held by the school's Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which are usually voluntary. According to a school spokesperson, though, some teachers unintentionally brought their entire class to the assembly instead of putting out sign-up sheets, calling it a mistake.
Whether it's in a church or in a school or on the street, the vision is to give hope by showing people Jesus and cultivate a passion for Jesus. And that's the only outcome I have. We're not seeking to build a following or make enemies.
When you have a major constitutional violation like that occur in a public school, especially, with regard to religion, you can't just refer to it as a mistake.
Joining me now, former Texas principal, Dr. James Whitfield. Doctor, it's good to have you back. Let's talk about this because I'm wondering, this is, as we said, separation of church and state, and there are a lot of people who wondered, should this even been allowed to happen in the first place in a public school?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. Good to be with you. It's really tricky, right? When you talk in public schools, we're there for public education. We're not there for any particular religion. We serve students from all faiths, those that don't have a particular faith, every single student that walks through our doors. And so if you're having something like this during the school day, that is a huge problem. There is a thing where certain organizations can have equal access to parts of the building, but that would be after school hours or before school hours for meetings. But that would be for anybody, not just Christian students and their sponsors.
So there'd be like groups, you're saying, that could meet. And are there any restrictions on that, whether that's a religious group in a public school?
Yeah, I know that each district has their own separate guidelines, but districts that I've worked in, an outside group, as long as they sign up, they have a sponsor, they can use those. They have to have equal access to those facilities. Meaning, if a Christian group says, "Hey, we want to use the auditorium Tuesday evening," well, that means that if a Muslim group wants to use the auditorium, you must also allow them to use that. And I think what we're facing here is, a lot of people, they want to be able to have Christianity in schools. And myself, I'm a Christian, but they don't want to allow these other groups to be afforded those same opportunities. But during the school day, it should be totally off limits because there is separation of church and state, and that is not our role as a public school.
All right, Doctor, let's get you on the story in Florida. There's a bill that says you can't talk about gender identity or sexual orientation in primary school. The question on this, is it a public school's place, public, not private, to teach gender identity? Should it be part of the curriculum in this day and age, or is it up to parents to teach this, you think?
Yeah, well, here's what I know to be true about public schools. Oftentimes, it is in a public school where these students are feeling the most safe to have these conversations. Students that have been struggling with their identity. It's with their educator, with the teacher, with an administrator, with a counselor at their school where they feel the most safe. And to leave it to, just to say it's parents, I get that. Man, parents' rights all the way. But we know that a lot of these students, there's a reason that overwhelmingly LGBTQ plus students or young people, they are homeless at higher rates than their peers. They are bullied at higher rates than their peers. They are committing suicide or attempting suicide at higher rates than their peers. And there's a reason for that. And so if they don't have this welcoming and comfortable space to talk about these things, we're really doing ourselves a disservice.
Interesting perspective. Former principal Dr. James Whitfield, again, it's good to see you again. Take care.
You as well. Thank you.
A real-life fear some cattle ranchers in New Mexico have. Get this, the U.S. government is planning to have sharpshooters kill loose feral cattle from choppers. That's some of them you see there. Ranchers are worried, though, what if they get the wrong ones, like theirs, as they shoot from the sky? New Mexico cattle rancher Lauren Patterson joins us now. So, Lauren, it's good to have you. Tell me what you don't like about this plan, I'm assuming aside from airborne sharpshooters.
Good evening, Joe. Well, that's one of the main reasons we filed a TRO yesterday trying to stop this operation. I have the great honor to represent the New Mexico Cattle Growers Association as their president, and some of the neighboring ranches to this area could possibly have some cattle in this area, and we want to make sure that their property is not going to be shot from helicopters by our own U.S. government.
Right. I mean, the idea is that they might be able to have a hard time determining a branded cow from an unbranded one.
Well, that's correct. Sometimes we have a hard time seeing those brands even feet away from those cattle, much less from a helicopter several hundred yards.
Why does this need to be done, Lauren? I'm not clear. Educate us on, how many of these feral cattle are out there?
Well, to be honest, there's not a true number that we know. We've seen estimates from 150 to 350 out there. It's very remote part of the state. It's very rugged part of the state.
Right.
And we know that these cattle are unmanaged, right? The grazing's unmanaged, everything like that. And they're affecting the ecosystem and the riparian areas. And we would like them out just as much as the U.S. government. But we don't believe that the wanton waste of that natural resource in times that our food shelves are empty, that this is the right plan at the right time.
What is the right plan? What would you rather see happening? I'm guessing you think there's a better way to do this than firing from the air.
Well, this has been a long-term issue. These cattle have been out there since the 1970s. We don't understand why the sudden want to get this solution solved this way, but it's just going to take a few years of focused gathering on those cattle to get them out without harm. But they've started this operation at 8 a.m. this morning. And so they plan on doing it over a period of 2 to 3 days. And we're trying to get it stopped to save just as many as we can.
So you think that they should allow you, old school style, just round them up and herd them?
Well, that's been the traditional way of doing it. This is a very remote area, and it's 15 miles from a holding facility, and the old school way is probably the only way to do it.
All right.
Ethically.
Yeah. Lauren Patterson, New Mexico cattle rancher. It's great to have you with us tonight. Thanks for the time.
I appreciate it, Joe.
On Balance with Leland Bittert starts at the top of the hour. I still would love to have a cowboy hat, but I just don't think it's not going to work.
We have some pictures available.
I know we've seen them. Mine's like the 25-gallon hat, I think is what I would need.
All hat, no cattle. All cattle, no hat. I can never.
One of the two. So we've got another American in the Olympics playing for China.
Yeah, so this is the son of a Hall of Famer who couldn't make it in the NHL, so he played in the Chinese Hockey League, played for Beijing for a number of years, and now he is playing for Team China in the Olympics.
Right.
So there you go. And look, we're seeing this more and more, right, of people playing for other countries. Chris Chelios' son playing. He's a Hockey Hall of Famer.
Chelios.
I got to tell you, the idea that an American would put on the Chinese uniform is just stunning to me.
Why?
This is a country perpetuating the worst genocide since World War II. This is a country stealing our intellectual property. This is a country imprisoning and torturing millions of people, threatening American allies, doesn't believe in American democracy. And I really wonder if 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, it will look as if there was an American athlete in 1936 who put on the German uniform and competed in the Berlin Olympics, and how we would have looked then at that.
He's certainly not alone, as I understand it. Aren't there, I think 18 of the guys on that Chinese team are from North America?
Right. No, a number of them are, and I don't get it. The only explanation I can have is that they're selling out for the almighty yuan or the almighty dollar.
The Olympics.
Well, right, but the Olympics is you represent your country. That's the whole idea behind the Olympics. The Olympics aren't find a country to play on a team so you can then participate in the Olympics.
Even if you have some connection to it. He's lived there for 5 years.
Well, then become a Chinese citizen and play for that team. Embrace that lifestyle.
I thought China didn't let you do that, right?
Well, no, they'll let you. They'll let you.
But
he won't give up his American citizenship.
No, right.
But he wants the Chinese dollars. Hey, that's his choice. But I think it's our choice to make a moral judgment on what he's doing.
What else do you have tonight?
So we've got that. Then also you've heard about the shutdown of the bridge. Factories across America shutting down now because of this trucker protest closing one of the main arteries from Canada to the United States. The mayor of the border town joining us with how he plans to end the trucker protest.
Interesting. All right, we'll look for that top of the hour. Leland, thanks.
See you then.
Big game between the Rams and Bengals just around the corner, but how much more is your Super Bowl party going to cost you this year? Find out. Our American Snapshot next. Well, here's an incredible first. A Black Hawk helicopter has taken off without a pilot. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, also known as DARPA, flew the unmanned Black Hawk on autopilot over Fort Campbell, Kentucky earlier this week. The U.S. military says they've been working on this technology for years so pilots can focus on the mission instead of the mechanics. How about that? Time for tonight's American Snapshot. Your Super Bowl party just got a lot more expensive. Prices jumped 7.5% since this time last year, the biggest one-year jump in 40 years. And ahead of Sunday's big game, it means you're going to get a lot less chip and dip for your buck. Buffalo wings for the big game, that's going to cost you 12% more than last year. How about some avocados for your nachos or guacamole? Like the add-on at Chipotle, it's going to cost you nearly 6% more than last year. And as far as playing flip cup or beer pong to help forget about the rising prices on items like red Solo cups up also 6%. At least you can wash it all down with a cold one. That'll only cost you 2% more than last year. That's our snapshot for tonight. We appreciate you joining us. Have a great evening. On Balance with Leland Vittert coming up next. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.